Body piercing has evolved from ancient cultural practices to modern forms of self-expression, offering countless ways to adorn the human form beyond traditional facial and genital modifications. Horizontal nipple piercing, a straight piercing through the nipple from side to side, typically adorned with a straight barbell or captive bead ring. This classic placement enhances the natural shape of the nipple and remains one of the most popular choices for chest modifications. The jewelry sits horizontally across the nipple, creating a striking visual effect that can be both subtle and bold depending on the chosen jewelry style. Most people experience this piercing as moderately to significantly painful, rating around 6 to 7 out of 10 on the pain scale due to the sensitive nature of nipple tissue. The healing process typically takes between 6 to 12 months, requiring consistent aftercare and patience as the body adjusts to the modification. Vertical nipple piercing. Jewelry passes vertically through the nipple, creating a unique aesthetic that emphasizes length rather than width. This orientation provides a more unusual appearance, with one end of the jewelry exiting at the base and the other at the top of the nipple. The vertical placement can accommodate both straight and curved barbells for different visual effects. The pain level is comparable to horizontal nipple piercings, typically ranging from 6 to 7 out of 10, as it involves the same sensitive tissue areas. Healing time mirrors that of horizontal nipple piercings, generally requiring 6 to 12 months for complete healing and stabilization. Nipple shield piercing combines a traditional nipple piercing with decorative shields that rest on top of the nipple, creating an elaborate and ornate appearance. These sophisticated pieces feature captivating jewelry designs that encircle the nipple, ranging from intricate Gothic patterns to minimalist geometric shapes. The shield component adds weight and visual drama to the modification, making it one of the more theatrical nipple piercing options available. Pain levels remain consistent with other nipple piercings at 6 to 7 out of 10, though the additional weight of the shield may cause some initial discomfort. The healing timeline extends to 6 to 12 months, with special attention needed to ensure the shield doesn't interfere with the healing process. Sternum piercing, a microdermal piercing placed in the center of the chest between the breasts, creating a dramatic focal point that draws attention to the décolletage area. This modification represents one of the most striking chest piercings available, positioned to complement the natural curves of the chest. The microdermal technique involves implanting an anchor beneath the skin with only the decorative top visible on the surface. Most individuals find this piercing moderately painful, typically rating it 5 to 6 out of 10 due to the relatively thick skin in the sternum area. Healing generally occurs within 3 to 6 months, though proper aftercare is crucial to prevent rejection or migration of the dermal anchor. Clavicle collarbone piercing. Surface piercing positioned just below the collarbone, offering an elegant accent to the shoulder area that creates a sophisticated and subtle modification. These modifications are strategically located on the topmost part of the chest, following the natural line of the clavicle, to enhance the shoulder and neck region's aesthetic appeal. The placement provides excellent visibility when wearing off-shoulder clothing while remaining easily concealable for professional settings. Pain levels are generally moderate, ranging from 4 to 5 out of 10, as the skin over the clavicle is not as sensitive as other body areas. The healing process typically takes 3 to 6 months, with proper aftercare being essential to prevent surface piercing complications. Corset piercing. Temporary piercings arranged in 2 parallel rows with ribbon lacing, mimicking a corset appearance on the back or torso. These artistic modifications are primarily created for special events, photo shoots, or performance art, transforming the back or torso into a literal work of wearable art. The process involves creating multiple surface piercings in precise alignment, then threading ribbon through them to create the lacing effect. Due to the multiple piercings involved and the temporary nature, pain levels are quite high, typically rating 7 to 8 out of 10, making this one of the more intense piercing experiences. Since these are designed as temporary modifications, they are typically removed the same day they are created. Traditional navel piercing. Pierced through the skin above the belly button with jewelry sitting over the navel opening. Often called belly button piercings, these modifications don't actually pierce the belly button itself, but rather pass through the skin above the top rim. This placement creates an appealing accent to the midsection that has remained popular across multiple decades. The piercing works best with certain anatomical configurations, requiring sufficient skin above the navel. Most people find navel piercings moderately painful, typically rating them 4 to 5 out of 10, as the skin in this area is relatively thick but not overly sensitive. The healing process is notably lengthy, generally requiring 6 to 12 months for complete healing. Floating navel piercing, alternative navel piercing technique designed for individuals whose anatomy doesn't accommodate traditional navel piercing placement. This modification technique respects individual anatomical variations, particularly for those with shallow navels or insufficient skin above the navel. The floating technique involves strategic placement that creates the appearance of a traditional navel piercing while working with the client's specific body structure. Pain
Ouch!
levels remain consistent with traditional navel piercings, typically ranging from 4 to 5 out of 10, as the same general area is involved. Healing time mirrors traditional navel piercings, requiring 6 to 12 months for complete healing and stabilization. Belly dermal. Dermal implants strategically placed around the abdominal area to complement or replace traditional navel piercings. These modifications can be positioned around the belly button area or along the abdomen to create custom patterns and designs that highlight the wearer's physique. Unlike traditional piercings, dermal piercings can be placed virtually anywhere on the abdomen, providing unlimited creative possibilities. Pain levels are moderate to significant, typically rating 5 to 6 out of 10 due to the microdermal installation process and varying thickness of abdominal skin. Healing is generally faster than traditional navel piercings, typically occurring within 2 to 4 months. Nape piercing, surface piercing through the back of the neck, creating a subtle yet striking modification that can be hidden by hair or revealed with updos. This modification runs horizontally through the skin at the back of the neck, typically positioned at the hairline, creating an elegant accent that complements the natural curves of the neck and shoulders. The placement requires careful consideration of hair growth patterns and daily activities. Due to the sensitive nature of neck skin and complex nerve network, pain levels are quite significant, typically rating 6 to 7 out of 10. The healing period is relatively quick for a surface piercing, generally taking 2 to 4 months. Madison piercing, piercing through the skin at the front of the lower neck, creating an unusual modification that bridges facial and body piercings. This distinctive placement goes through the skin in front of the lower neck, typically positioned just above the collarbone area, creating an interesting accent that draws attention to the throat region. The Madison piercing represents one of the more unconventional piercing locations, appealing to those seeking something truly unique. Pain
Ouch!
levels are moderate to significant, typically ranging from 5 to 6 out of 10, as the front neck area contains sensitive skin. Healing generally occurs within 2 to 4 months, though the visible location requires consistent aftercare attention. Back dimple piercing. Surface piercings, positioned on the lower back where the pelvis and spine meet, often done in pairs to accentuate natural curves. Sometimes referred to as lower back piercings, these modifications are strategically placed to enhance the natural dimples that appear above the buttocks. The placement works particularly well for those who enjoy wearing low-rise clothing or swimwear, creating an appealing detail that draws attention to the lower back region. Pain
Ouch!
levels are moderate to significant, typically rating 5 to 6 out of 10, as the lower back area contains thicker skin but experiences significant movement. The healing process takes 3 to 6 months, requiring careful attention to prevent complications from sitting and clothing friction. Hip piercing. Surface piercing positioned near the hip bones, particularly popular along the V-line of the pelvis. These modifications are frequently done on both sides to achieve symmetrical decoration and can be doubled up for more dramatic visual impact. The placement follows the natural bone structure of the pelvis, creating an organic integration with the body's existing curves while providing a modern aesthetic element. Hip piercings work particularly well for individuals with defined hip bones and complement low-rise clothing and swimwear. The pain
Ouch!
level is moderate to significant, typically ranging from 5 to 6 out of 10, as the skin over the hip bones is relatively thick, but proximity to bone creates additional discomfort. Healing generally takes 3 to 6 months, with special attention needed to prevent complications from clothing waistbands. Wrist piercing. Surface piercing on the inner or outer wrist area, creating a bold and highly visible statement that requires careful placement due to high mobility. These modifications can be positioned on various areas of the wrist, including the inner wrist or outer wrist along the bone. The wrist represents one of the more challenging locations for surface piercings due to constant movement and use of hands in daily activities. The visibility makes them popular among those who want their modifications to be seen and appreciated. Pain
Ouch!
levels are quite significant, typically rating 6 to 7 out of 10, due to thin skin, proximity to bones, and dense nerve network. Healing is relatively quick, generally occurring within 2 to 4 months, though the high movement location requires exceptional aftercare. Hand dermal. dermal implants placed on the top of the hands, creating one of the most bold and visible body modification statements available. These piercings can be arranged in various patterns, from single accent pieces to multiple dermals, creating geometric designs. Hand dermals represent a significant commitment due to their highly visible placement and the hand's constant use in daily activities. The placement options are virtually unlimited, allowing for creative arrangements that can complement hand tattoos or stand alone. Due to thin skin, proximity to bones, and dense nerve network, pain levels
Ouch.
are quite high, typically rating 6 to 7 out of 10. Healing is relatively quick for dermal piercings, generally taking 2 to 3 months, though constant hand use requires exceptional care. Hand web piercing. A piercing through the webbed skin between fingers, most commonly placed between the thumb and index finger, though it can be done between any digits. This modification creates a striking accent to the hand area and is highly visible, making it popular among those seeking unique hand decoration. The thin skin in this area makes it a challenging piercing location due to constant hand movement and exposure to bacteria from daily activities. Proper placement is essential to minimize rejection, with experienced piercers choosing the thinnest spot while avoiding muscle and tendon areas. Pain
Ouch.
levels are surprisingly low during the piercing process, typically rating around 3 to 4 out of 10, though the area may be tender for a week or more afterward. Healing is particularly challenging and lengthy, generally taking 6 months to a year minimum due to constant hand use, exposure to germs, and high risk of infection, with many piercings developing thick scar tissue rather than healing smoothly. Microdermal/dermal anchor. Single point piercing with an anchor implanted under the skin and decorative top sitting flush with the surface. These versatile modifications consist of a small anchor inserted beneath the skin through a small incision, with only the decorative top visible, creating seamless integration with the body's natural contours. The microdermal technique allows modifications in locations previously impossible with traditional piercings, opening up endless possibilities for creative expression on virtually any flat surface. Pain
Ouch.
levels vary significantly depending on placement location, typically ranging from 4 to 6 out of 10, with areas over bone or thinner skin generally being more painful. Healing time is generally consistent regardless of location, typically taking 2 to 4 months for the anchor to fully integrate. Chest dermal. Dermal piercings placed anywhere on the chest area, offering versatile placement options for custom designs that can complement natural body contours or existing tattoos. These modifications can be positioned strategically across the chest to create patterns, geometric designs, or accent-specific anatomical features. The chest area offers excellent conditions for dermal piercings due to relatively stable skin and good blood supply. Popular placement and options include between the breasts, along the collarbone area, or scattered across the upper chest. Pain
Ouch.
levels vary depending on specific placement, typically ranging from 4 to 6 out of 10, with areas over bone generally being more sensitive. Healing typically occurs within 2 to 4 months, with the chest location generally providing good conditions for successful integration. Shoulder blade piercing. Surface piercing positioned on the shoulder blade area, creating an elegant accent that's visible in backless clothing. These modifications highlight the natural curves and definition of the shoulder blade area, creating an attractive detail that draws attention to the back and shoulders. The placement works particularly well for individuals with defined shoulder blade anatomy and can be done as single piercings or in pairs for symmetrical decoration. The shoulder blade area provides relatively good conditions for surface piercings due to underlying bone support. Pain levels are moderate to significant, typically rating 5 to 6 out of 10, as the skin over the shoulder blades is relatively thick, but proximity to bone creates discomfort. Healing generally takes 3 to 6 months, requiring careful attention to prevent complications from clothing and sleeping positions.